First contact with death. Commander Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display, watching as another probe disintegrated upon entering NK-792's atmosphere. It was the 12th probe they'd lost this week, each one more heavily shielded than the last. The planet below them, with its deceptively peaceful swirls of amber and gold clouds, had earned its nickname, the Graveyard, honestly. Fascinating, Dr. Victor Rossi muttered from his station, dark eyes fixed on the readings. The shield harmonics were perfect this time. It shouldn't have failed. The Italian physicist had designed the probe's defenses himself, incorporating technology from 5 different alien civilizations. That's what you said about the last 11, Chen remarked, rubbing her temples. The bridge of the ESS Prometheus was unusually quiet, the typical background chatter replaced by an atmosphere of tense concentration. According to the archives, over 3,000 advanced civilizations have attempted to study or colonize NK-792, Lieutenant Commander Aisha Patel reported, scrolling through the data on her tablet. None survived longer than 72 hours. Most didn't make it past the first 12. Chen nodded, remembering the briefing that had brought them here. The Galactic Council had classified NK-792 as a Class X forbidden world after the Zethkra, one of the most technologically advanced species in known space, lost an entire research fleet trying to study it. The official report had been sealed, but the rumors spoke of ships simply stopping. Not exploding, not crashing, just stopping. As if they'd forgotten how to function. What makes this particular death trap so special? Chen asked, more to herself than her crew. The planet's surface readings showed comfortable temperatures, breathable atmosphere, and gravity just slightly higher than Earth standard. By all accounts, it should have been perfect for colonization. Permission to speak freely, Commander. Dr. Maya Wong, their xenobiologist, stepped forward from her observation post. Always, Doctor. We're thinking about this wrong, Wong said, her weathered face animated with excitement. Look at the failure pattern of our probes. Each one was more advanced than the last, and each one failed faster. What if we tried something simpler? Chen raised an eyebrow. Simpler how? Let me show you. Wong hurried to her lab and returned carrying what looked like a child science project, a small atmospheric probe cobbled together from spare parts and what appeared to be an old smartphone. You can't be serious, Rossi protested. That thing looks like it belongs in a museum. Exactly, Wong grinned. Launch it. Chen considered for a moment, then nodded to Patel. Do it. They watched as the crude probe descended through NK-792's atmosphere. Seconds ticked by. Then minutes. The bridge crew held their breath, waiting for the inevitable failure. It never came. Impossible, Rossi whispered, staring at his readings. It's working. We're getting clear atmospheric data. But how? Because it's too primitive to fail, Wong explained, her eyes shining. Whatever force destroys advanced technology here, it seems to ignore simpler systems. It's like the planet has an immune system that attacks anything too sophisticated. Chen leaned forward, studying the incoming data. The probe's camera, literally an old smartphone camera sealed in a reinforced case, was sending back crystal-clear images of the surface. Where their advanced probes had seen only static, this jury-rigged contraption was showing them rolling plains covered in something like purple grass, strange crystalline formations that might have been trees, and in the distance. Are those ruins? Patel enhanced the image, revealing what appeared to be the remains of countless failed expeditions. Ships and structures from dozens of alien civilizations lay scattered across the landscape like discarded toys. The galaxy's biggest spacecraft graveyard, Chen murmured. And we just figured out how to get past the bouncer. Commander, Wong said quietly, we have to go down there. This could be the greatest scientific opportunity in human history. Understanding why simple technology works when advanced systems fail could revolutionize our understanding of everything. It's also likely to kill us, Rossi pointed out. Just because a primitive probe survived doesn't mean we will. Chen stood up, her decision already made. She hadn't become the commander of humanity's most ambitious exploration vessel by playing it safe. Assemble the landing team, she ordered. But here's the twist, I want minimal advanced tech. Think 20th century where possible. Dr. Wong, you're in charge of equipment selection. If it looks like it could win a science fair from 2020 or earlier, it's approved. Anything more advanced needs my personal authorization. You're actually going to risk landing on a planet that's killed thousands of advanced civilizations? Rossi asked incredulously. Chen smiled, the kind of smile that had carried humanity from cave paintings to the stars. Doctor, that's exactly why we have to try. Every species that died here was more advanced than us. Maybe, just maybe, that's why we'll succeed where they failed. As her crew rushed to prepare for their descent, Chen looked once more at the planet below. Somewhere down there, amid the ruins of countless civilizations that had reached for perfection and died trying, humanity was about to make its mark, armed with duct tape, backup systems, and that unique human talent for surviving where no one else could. Dr. Wong, she called out, make sure we pack plenty of spare parts. Something tells me we're going to need them. Already ahead of you, Commander, Wong replied, hefting a duffel bag that clinked with what sounded suspiciously like wrenches and screwdrivers. I've got everything from paperclips to pickle jars. If we can't fix something with what's in this bag, it probably shouldn't be fixed. As the landing preparations continued around her, Chen couldn't help but smile. They were about to attempt something incredibly stupid or incredibly brilliant, possibly both. But then again, wasn't that humanity's specialty? The adaptive edge. The landing module shuddered as it descended through NK-792's atmosphere, but unlike the sophisticated ships that had come before, it didn't die. Commander Chen gripped her decidedly low-tech safety harness, actual nylon straps instead of force fields, and watched through the reinforced glass window as the surface rushed up to meet them. Landing struts engaged, Patel announced from the pilot's seat, working with manual controls that would have made their ancestors proud. Primitive but functional landing radar showing clear terrain ahead. The module touched down with all the grace of a drunk elephant, bouncing twice before settling. Nobody complained, elegance wasn't the goal. Survival was. Environmental readings? Chen asked, turning to Wong, who was bent over what appeared to be a modified weather station from the early 2000s. Atmosphere is breathable, temperature 18 degrees Celsius, radiation levels. Wong paused, frowning at her jerry-rigged instruments. Well, they're weird, but not immediately lethal. Whatever kills advanced tech and biology here, it's not conventional radiation. Chen nodded, surveying her landing team through the module's windows. They looked ridiculous by modern standards, their environmental suits were more like old-school hazmat gear than the sleek nanofabric suits used by other species. Batteries instead of microfusion cells, mechanical air filters instead of molecular scrubbers, and enough duct tape to make any handyman proud. Remember, she broadcast through their radio system, analog, naturally, stick to the basics. If it looks too advanced to have existed in 2020, don't trust it with your life. The team stepped out onto NK-792's surface, their boots crunching on something that looked like gravel but sparkled like crushed diamonds. All around them, the remains of previous expeditions cast long shadows in the amber light of the system's star. Dr. Rossi waved a Geiger counter, an actual, ancient Geiger counter, at a nearby wreck. This was Zethkra technology, he said, voice filled with awe. Their ships were practically alive, with neural networks that could repair any damage. And yet. He gestured at the dead vessel, its once living hull now as lifeless as stone. Look at this, Wong called out, examining a patch of the strange purple grass with a manual microscope. The cellular structure, it's amazing. These plants aren't just alive, they're thriving in conditions that killed everything else. Like us? Chen asked, joining her. Exactly like us, Wong replied excitedly. Commander, I think I know why we're still alive. Look at these readings, basic chemical analysis, nothing fancy. She held up a paper strip that had changed color. This planet's environment isn't hostile to life itself. It's hostile to optimization. Chen frowned. Explain. Every species that died here was highly evolved, specialized, optimized, Wong continued. The Zethkra with their living ships, the MRSK with their perfect biological systems, even their technology, all of it refined to the point of perfection. But these plants? They're messy. Inefficient. Multiple redundant systems, seemingly random mutations, just like humans, Rossi finished, understanding dawning on his face. We're the galaxy's greatest generalists. Our biology is full of redundancies, backup systems, junk DNA. Our technology too, Patel added, patting the landing module's hull. We never fully abandoned mechanical systems even when we developed better ones. We still keep manual overrides, physical switches, backup after backup. Because we never trusted perfection, Chen said softly. Every other species evolved toward optimization. We evolved to adapt. Their radios crackled, simple interference, not the complete system failure that had killed more advanced communication systems. Commander, came the voice of Dr. Hassan from the landing module, you need to see this. We're picking up energy readings from beneath the surface. Old tech, really old tech, is registering activity about 2 kilometers east. Chen looked at her team, saw the same mix of fear and excitement on their faces that she felt. Well, she said, checking the mechanical compass on her wrist, shall we go see what the planet's been hiding from everyone else? They gathered their equipment, laughably primitive by galactic standards but proven effective where advanced technology had failed. As they began their trek across the alien landscape, Chen couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Here they were, walking on a planet that had killed thousands of advanced civilizations, protected not by sophisticated force fields or optimized biology, but by humanity's greatest strength, their imperfection. You know what this reminds me of? Wong said as they walked, carefully collecting samples in glass jars. My grandmother's kitchen. Everything was a mix of old and new, electric stove but cast iron pans, digital thermometer but manual meat grinder. When I asked her why she kept the old stuff, she said, because sometimes the old ways work better. My dad was the same with his car, Patel added. Kept installing modern parts but always made sure he could fix it with a wrench if he had to. Called it, hybrid vigor. Chen listened to her crew chat, their voices carrying clearly over simple radio waves while the ruins of quantum communication systems lay silent around them. Every piece of equipment they carried represented not the peak of human achievement, but rather humanity's stubborn refusal to put all their eggs in one technological basket. As they approached the source of the energy readings, they passed more wreckage, each site a monument to the danger of pursuing perfection at the cost of adaptability. Chen realized that every failed expedition had brought their best technology, their most advanced systems, their most optimized solutions. They had brought perfection to a planet that demanded imperfection. And now here came humanity, climbing over the ruins of superior civilizations, armed with duct tape and backup plans, surviving because they had never quite managed to eliminate their flaws. Commander, Hassan's voice crackled over the radio, energy readings are getting stronger. Whatever's down there, it's been waiting for someone to find it. Someone who could survive long enough to reach it, Chen added, looking at her team of beautiful disasters, the galaxy's greatest generalists, about to uncover secrets that had killed everyone else who had tried to understand them. Well then, she said, checking her primitive but reliable compass one more time, let's not keep it waiting. Humanity's about to make first contact with something that apparently appreciates a good mess. The team pressed on, their boot prints marking the soil of NK 792 alongside the remains of countless failed attempts at perfection. Behind them, their landing module sat quietly functioning, its simple systems unbothered by the forces that had destroyed so many superior vessels. Sometimes, Chen reflected, the best way to win wasn't to be the best, it was to be too stubborn, too redundant, and too adaptable to fail. Building from scratch. The energy signature led them to what appeared to be a cave entrance, its walls lined with crystalline formations that pulsed with a soft, amber light. As the team approached, their simpler instruments remained steady while the few advanced sensors they'd risked bringing immediately began to malfunction. "Well, that's promising," Chen remarked, watching an expensive quantum scanner dissolve into useless atoms. She pulled out an old-fashioned lead line and plumb bob. "Back to basics, people." The cave system descended gradually, its walls inscribed with patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. Dr. Wong ran her fingers along the markings, her face illuminated by the beam of a hand-cranked flashlight. "These aren't random," she announced. "They're mathematical sequences, but they're deliberately imperfect. Like someone wrote down the most elegant equations in the universe, then intentionally introduced errors." Rossi nodded, scribbling in a paper notebook. "It's the same pattern we've been seeing. Perfection is punished, adaptation is rewarded. But why? Who would build something like this? More importantly," Chen added, "why do they seem to like us?" Their answers came in the form of a vast chamber that opened up before them. The walls were covered in displays that, impossibly, activated as they entered. But unlike the holographic systems used by modern civilizations, these displays used something far more primitive, actual physical screens, their technology seemingly dated to humanity's early digital age. "It's an archive," Hassan breathed, examining the nearest display. "But, it's showing our history. Earth's history." Indeed, the screens were cycling through images of human evolution, not the sanitized version taught in schools, but the messy reality. Failed adaptations, dead ends, catastrophic mutations that somehow led to useful features. Humanity's stumbling path from primordial ooze to the stars. "Look at this," Patel called out, pointing to another screen. It showed similar evolutionary paths for other species, but where humanity's path was a chaotic web of attempts and failures, the others were clean, straight lines. Perfect optimization. "We're seeing the fundamental difference," Wong said excitedly. Other species evolved toward perfection. They found what worked and specialized. But humans? "We never stopped experimenting," Chen finished. "Even when we found something that worked, we kept trying alternatives. Not because we wanted to, but because we had to." A new display activated, showing Earth's history of natural disasters, ice ages, meteor impacts, supervolcanoes. Each catastrophe had nearly wiped out humanity, but each time, some population somewhere had survived. Not because they were the strongest or most advanced, but because they had maintained enough variety, enough imperfection, to adapt. "This facility," Rossi said slowly, "it's not just an archive. It's a testing ground. The planet's not killing advanced civilizations, it's testing them. And we're the first to pass." As if in response to his words, a new section of the chamber illuminated. At its center stood what appeared to be a control interface, but unlike anything they'd seen before. Instead of the neural links or thought-controlled systems used by advanced species, this was purely mechanical. Buttons, levers, and manual inputs. "It's made for us," Chen realized. "Not just for humans specifically, but for any species that maintains this level of technological diversity. We can use it because we never fully abandoned these basic interfaces." Wong was already examining the controls. "Commander, these systems, they're not just monitoring the planet. They're controlling it. The energy field that disrupts advanced technology, the environmental conditions, it's all managed from here." "But why?" Patel asked. "Why create a planet that kills perfection?" Before anyone could answer, the chamber's displays changed again. New images appeared, galactic maps showing thousands of worlds, all connected by the same energy signature they detected on NK 792. Because this isn't just one planet, Chen said, understanding dawning. It's part of a network. A system designed to find species capable of true adaptation. And we just proved ourselves worthy of it. Hassan was studying the mechanical readouts. Commander, according to these readings, the planet's defensive systems are adjusting. Accepting our presence. We can start building here, establishing a permanent presence. But we'll have to do it the hard way, Rossi added. No advanced tech. Nothing too perfect. Chen smiled, looking around at her team of beautiful disasters, humans, the species that had never quite gotten it right, never quite achieved perfection, and in doing so had achieved something far more valuable. The hard way is what we do best, she said. Let's get to work. We've got a planet to colonize, and we're going to do it with duct tape, backup systems, and good old-fashioned human ingenuity. As her team began the process of establishing humanity's first foothold on NK 792, Chen couldn't help but appreciate the irony. They had finally found their place in the galaxy, not by reaching for the stars, but by remembering how to use a screwdriver. In the weeks that followed, they would build their base using methods that would have made their ancestors proud, and their more advanced galactic neighbors cringe. Every system had a manual backup, every critical component had a redundant twin, and everything, absolutely everything, could be fixed with tools from a 20th-century hardware store. They were writing a new chapter in human history, one stripped of technological perfection but rich in the kind of adaptability that had carried their species from caves to the stars. And as they worked, the planet's defenses gradually shifted from hostile to welcoming, recognizing in humanity's beautiful mess the very quality it had been designed to find. NK 792, the planet that killed perfection, had finally found its perfect match, a species that had made an art form out of imperfection. The coming storm. 3 months into the NK 792 expedition, Commander Chen stood in their makeshift control center, staring at readings from their cobbled-together monitoring systems. Dr. Wong had rigged up an early warning system using recycled parts from 20 different civilizations' failed expeditions, all powered by what looked suspiciously like a bicycle generator. Tell me I'm reading this wrong, Chen said, tapping the analog pressure gauge. You're not, Hassan confirmed, cranking the generator to keep their instruments running. The planet star is entering an unprecedented surge cycle. We're looking at a solar storm that would make Earth's Carrington event look like a static shock. The control room buzzed with activity, but not the smooth efficiency of modern spacecraft. Instead, there was the organized chaos of humans doing what they did best, adapting on the fly. How long? Chen asked. 48 hours until it hits, Patel reported, using a mechanical calculator that clicked and whirred. The good news is that our primitive equipment should survive. The bad news. The bad news is that the storm will supercharge the planet's anti-technology field, Rossi finished. Anything more advanced than a toaster will be reduced to atoms. Chen nodded, looking around their settlement. In 3 months, they'd built something unique in the galaxy, a colony that worked not despite its technological limitations, but because of them. Solar panels made from salvaged materials sat alongside wind turbines constructed from alien wreckage. Their habitats were a patchwork of modern materials used in decidedly unmodern ways. What about the archive chamber? She asked. The entity controlling this planet, whatever it is, must have planned for this. Already checked, Wong replied, holding up a notebook filled with hand-drawn diagrams. The chamber's protected, but there's something else. The patterns in the wall, they're changing. I think the storm is intentional. Another test, Chen muttered. All right, let's do what humans do best. We improvise. Hassan, start converting our backup systems to purely mechanical operations. Patel, calculate what materials we can salvage from the wreckage fields. Wong, I want to know everything those wall patterns are trying to tell us. As her team scattered to their tasks, Chen felt a familiar sensation, the electric tension that came before a challenge that should be impossible. Humanity had faced extinction-level events before, survived them with nothing but stubborn determination and the ability to think sideways. The next 48 hours became a masterclass in human ingenuity. They built Faraday cages from scavenged metal, installed lightning rods using techniques that would have been familiar to Benjamin Franklin, and created a weather monitoring system that relied entirely on air pressure and wind direction. "Look at this," Wong called out, 20 hours before the storm was due to hit. She'd been studying the archive's changing patterns non-stop. "The equations in the walls, they're not just showing the storm. They're showing us how to use it." The team gathered around her notes. Wong had decoded a pattern that showed how the solar storm would interact with the planet's defensive field, creating a unique form of energy that could be harnessed, if you weren't too advanced to capture it. "It's brilliant," Rossi said, his scientist skepticism warring with amazement. "Advanced civilizations would try to shield against the storm with force fields and quantum barriers. While we're going to catch it with the equivalent of a lightning rod and a really big battery," Patel finished, grinning. As the storm approached, they worked frantically to construct their makeshift energy collection system. The design was something that would have made Nikola Tesla proud, if he'd had access to alien materials and a complete disregard for conventional engineering principles. The sky turned an impossible shade of purple as the storm hit. Lightning danced between the crystalline formations that dotted the landscape. The few pieces of advanced technology they hadn't been able to completely deactivate dissolved into light. But their settlement held. More than held, it thrived. The collection system Wong had decoded from the archive's patterns drew in the storm's energy, storing it in ways that defied modern scientific understanding but would have made perfect sense to humanity's earliest electricians. "Power levels rising," Hassan reported from his station, where he monitored their systems with gauges that clicked and needles that swung. "Whatever we're catching, it's more than just electricity." Chen watched as the storm raged around their protected bubble of deliberate technological regression. Through the reinforced windows, actual glass, not force fields, she could see new patterns forming in the planet's crystalline structures, patterns that matched the ones in the archive. "It's not just testing us," she realized. "It's teaching us. Everything we've lost in our rush to advance, the redundancy, the mechanical understanding, the ability to work with basic principles, this place is showing us why we need to keep it." The storm lasted for 6 hours. When it cleared, their settlement had changed. The salvaged materials they'd used to build their collectors had transformed, taking on properties that should have been impossible for such basic technology. "The energy readings are off the charts," Wong reported, examining their modified equipment. "But not in ways our advanced sensors could detect. It's like the planet is showing us a different path to the future. Not through perfection, but through adaptation." Rossi was already documenting the changes in his paper notebook. "We're seeing technological evolution that follows biological principles, redundancy, adaptability, multiple approaches to the same problem. Everything that made human biology successful, applied to engineering. And everything that made other species fail," Chen added, "their drive for perfect, optimized solutions, the planet's showing us why that's a dead end." As they began to understand what they'd survived, and what they'd gained, Chen noticed something else. The archive chamber was displaying new information, showing them glimpses of other worlds in the network. Other planets waiting to be discovered, each with its own lessons about the power of imperfection. They had passed more than just a test. They had proven that humanity's greatest weakness, their stubborn refusal to fully abandon old ways in favor of new ones, was actually their greatest strength. The storm that should have destroyed them had instead opened a door to a different kind of future. One where progress didn't mean perfection, where adaptation mattered more than optimization, and where humanity's beautiful mess of solutions might just be exactly what the galaxy needed. Chen looked at her team, tired but triumphant, and smiled. "Well," she said, "I guess we should start taking notes." Something tells me we've got a lot to teach the galaxy about the right way to do things wrong. The universe, it seemed, had been waiting for a species that understood that the best way to survive wasn't to be perfect, it was to be perfectly adaptable. Evolution's champions. The message arrived 6 months after the solar storm. Chen was in their newly expanded control center, now a fascinating blend of salvaged alien tech and human ingenuity, when their long-range communications array, built primarily from copper wire and recycled coffee cans, picked up the signal. "It's being transmitted on frequencies we haven't seen before," Patel reported, adjusting dials on their jerry-rigged receiver. "But somehow our equipment is picking it up perfectly." "Because it's meant for us," Wong said quietly, studying the patterns emerging on their oscilloscope. "Look at the transmission method, it's deliberately using simplified waves, like someone making sure we could receive it with basic equipment." The message, when they decoded it, was simple: coordinates and a time. What made it extraordinary was its origin. It came from the oldest known civilization in the galaxy, the Archivists, who hadn't communicated with any species in 10,000 years. "Well," Chen said, looking at her team, "I guess we made an impression." The coordinates led them to a location on NK 792's surface they hadn't explored yet. As they approached in their modified transport, essentially a 20th-century rover rebuilt with alien materials, they saw something impossible, a structure that seemed to phase between states of technological advancement, never settling on a single form. "It's perfect," Rossi breathed, watching the building shift. "Not because it's optimized, but because it can be anything it needs to be. Just like us," Chen finished. They were met by beings that defied description. The archivists appeared differently to each observer, as if adapting their form to match each human's ability to comprehend them. "You understand now," the archivist's words formed directly in their minds, but in a way that felt like reading a book rather than advanced telepathy. "Why this planet exists. Why we waited." The structure around them came alive with images, the history of the galaxy, but not the version they knew. They saw civilizations rise, achieve perfection, and then stagnate. Species that had optimized themselves into evolutionary dead ends. Empires that had collapsed because they couldn't adapt to change. The galaxy was dying, the archivist continued. Not from war or disaster, but from perfection. Every species that achieved technological mastery followed the same path: optimization, specialization, stagnation. "We created this planet, and others like it, as crucibles to find something different. You were looking for species that could survive imperfection," Wong said, understanding dawning. "That's why the planet kills advanced technology. You wanted to find civilizations that could thrive without it." "We were looking for the future," the archivist corrected. "For species that could teach the galaxy how to evolve again. Your humanity, your beautiful, chaotic, redundant humanity, you carry within you the seeds of true adaptation." Chen looked at her team, seeing them through new eyes. Humans had always seen themselves as playing catch-up to more advanced civilizations. But here, in their deliberately primitive settlement, using technology that spanned centuries of development rather than pursuing a single perfect solution, they had proven themselves to be something else entirely. "That's why you let us find the archive," she realized. "Why you guided us through the storm. You're not just testing us, you're preparing us." The archivist's form shifted, becoming something almost human. "The galaxy needs to remember how to change. How to embrace imperfection as a path to growth. Who better to teach them than the species that never forgot?" The implications were staggering. Humanity, with their messy technology and redundant biology, their stubborn refusal to abandon old tools even as they created new ones, had inadvertently preserved something precious: the ability to adapt, to change, to survive by being imperfect. "There are more worlds like this one," the archivist explained. "Each with its own lessons, its own challenges. We offer them to you now, not as tests, but as tools. Help us teach the galaxy how to evolve again." Chen looked at her team, saw the same mix of terror and excitement on their faces that she felt. They had come to NK-792 expecting to find death, only to discover that humanity's greatest perceived weaknesses, their technological inconsistency, their biological redundancies, their refusal to optimize, were actually their greatest strengths. "We accept," she said, knowing she spoke not just for her team but for all of humanity. "On one condition, we do it our way. No perfect solutions, no optimized approaches. We teach the galaxy how to embrace the chaos." The archivist's form rippled in what might have been amusement. "We would expect nothing less from the species that conquered death with duct tape and backup plans." As they left the structure, Chen's team was already buzzing with ideas. They had been given a mission that would have been impossible for any other species, to teach the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy how to be productively imperfect. "You know what this means?" Wong asked, grinning as they drove back to their settlement. "Every jury-rigged solution, every good-enough fix, every time we kept old technology, just in case, we were accidentally preparing for this moment." Chen looked back at their colony, where solar panels sat next to wind turbines, where mechanical computers worked alongside salvaged alien tech, where humanity's refusal to commit to a single technological path had created something unique in the galaxy, true adaptability. "Not accidentally," she corrected. "This is who we are. We're the species that never stopped experimenting, never achieved perfection, and in doing so, became perfectly suited to save the galaxy from itself." As they reached their settlement, Chen could already see the future unfolding, humanity spreading across the galaxy, not as conquerors or perfect beings, but as teachers, showing other species how to embrace imperfection, how to maintain diversity, how to survive by never quite getting it right. The species that had been looked down upon for their technological inconsistency would now lead the galaxy back from the brink of perfect stagnation. And they would do it with duct tape, backup plans, and the beautiful chaos that made them human. NK-792, the planet that killed perfection, had become humanity's first step toward teaching the galaxy how to live again. Not through optimization, but through adaptation. Not through perfection, but through the perfect imperfection that had kept humanity surviving, growing, and evolving since they first looked up at the stars and thought, "We can probably figure out how to get there." And probably, it turned out, was exactly what the galaxy needed.